Alrighty, guys. So, some new monsters just dropped, some new spawns, and I figured I'd go over them. I'm just gonna preface this with this new set. So there's been a lot of these concerto types of monsters, and they've come and gone a lot. But these generally come out in every single element, so I just want to preface this with, if you have a specific element that you want to run, I would recommend waiting. But this gear is incredible, and so are the monsters. So let's get into it. First we have Verina, and so each of these will have two different forms. When you're throwing the Unison, I believe the red one is on bottom, blue one is on top, so you can choose which form you want to throw when you're throwing the Uni. So if you're not familiar with that, just wanted to explain it. So Verina's red form, she does some damage, okay. She increases Unison gauge gains, all right. She increases allies' Unison gauge by 50. Oh, that's amazing. Okay. She also applies a super unique buff that used to be on a few monsters, but Unison League forgot about it for a couple years, and now they are bringing it back. But it is a special ability that whenever you use an ability, you will gain 2 uni. So it's not quite the same as a uni gain, but it is separate, and they can stack separately. So Unison gauge gains stacks up to 5, whereas this is a separate thing, so you can stack up to 5 plus the extra 2. So they are separate. They're not the same. So that's incredible. Dawn, love to see it. That means that your team's not going to run out of cost, that you'll be able to quickly attack, and you have good damage if you're throwing this into a team, into like in a guild battle on your team. You have some good buffs. Serenity, fantastic buff, because if the enemies start throwing a bunch of time slicing monsters, boom, you get uni instantly. When this expires, you get 100% uni. That is amazing. Ambush, also amazing. This allows you to use the same ability over and over and over and over and over again, as long as the ability is dual attackable. So some abilities, they aren't dual attackable. So if it is dual attackable, you can use it as many times as you want. Fantastic. So right off the bat, I can tell you this is a 10 out of 10 monster for just this form for guild battles. If you're a treasure hunter, if you are a frontliner, if you are somebody who participates in guild battles, this is a 100% 10 out of 10 required. You need this monster. It will be meta defining for the next 6 months. Unless something else comes out that's unbelievably broken, this will be meta defining monster for a while. And she will be good for years probably after this, but she will probably not be the number one choice. The only thing that she doesn't do is she doesn't protect your side of the field. So if you get uni and your opponents get uni at the same time, and they throw a priority monster that blocks your field control, then they can reduce the amount of uni that you get, and the 50 uni that you can gain would just be gone. So there are some things to be aware of with that, but overall, so far, 10 out of 10 monster will absolutely be incredibly powerful. Let's swap to the second side. So this is a new thing during elemental battles. When this Unison effect is used, the value of the water element weakening effect on monsters is increased by 10. So I am not familiar with this. This is brand new, but here's my best guess. I believe that when you use this, that when the enemies throw a water monster, their damage is reduced. I don't know if it's damage or ability power, but my guess is that the damage that they're doing is being reduced by 10%. How it's being done, I'm not sure. This is a new effect, but it's interesting. Penetration hits 3 times, so this is more of a killing set just right off the bat. You get prohibits Unison at 170. 170 is bonkers. That is beyond good. That's you would need to stack at least 3 monsters that give you prohibit unison reduction in order to even stand a chance at potentially not getting uni locked when this monster goes. So really incredible. Max debuff on unison gauge gains, reducing the enemy's uni by 50, which for high level guild battles is irrelevant because most players will have 100% uni reduction resistance, so you won't be able to reduce their uni anyway. Dawn, fantastic. We talked about Dawn. It's a good PvP, PvE effect, fantastic. Serenity, same thing. Ambush, also the same thing from the previous side. Amazing. This side is more of the, if you're trying to prevent the enemies from uniing, this is the side that you would use, and it is nice flexibility. If you have multiple treasure hunters on the front line with this monster, then you can have one of them throw this version, the other one throw this version, and you get some nice coverage. Now, it is important to note that Prohibit Uni is one of the oldest status effects and is incredibly easy to remove. So just be aware that it is something that will not stick. But if the enemies have thrown uni and you have thrown uni and you win the clash, then this monster will go off and then the opponents could get uni locked before they have a chance to remove the uni lock, and it could win you the game. So that's just to be aware. It has some drawbacks. It's not perfect, but it is good. Let's look at her awakenings. 60k. This is incredible. So before, we had things like 40k, 45k. That's where normal monsters would sit. I think I saw one monster at 50k, but 60k, this brings it to a whole new level. So we can expect that going forward, 45 cost monsters will be giving 60k or more. So if they don't give 60k, then compare them back to this monster and you would just realize you're missing out on lots of stats. Slumber resistance is very, very good. It's not used as much as it used to be. It's still one of the most used special effects. So Slumber, Insanity, and Rejection are all used quite a bit. Slumber is one of the best effects and has been used for a long time. Fantastic that you see it here. Wind defense, we'll see how well monsters in the water department are going to be doing as far as damage wise. In the past, they have been doing really, really well. So this is a nice bit of unison defense. Lethargy and frail resistance. So lethargy means that you can't proc proc attacks. Frail resistance means you can't proc defense. And overall, this is pretty darn good for a lot of things. There are high-level PvE quests that require lethargy and frail resistance, so this can be a nice monster to give it to you. There are lots of instances in Colosseum that this would be impactful, and even in guild battle, if you're using this as a backline monster or even a frontline monster, when during your clashes, if you're a DPS character, part of the backline section, this can affect your damage output on Crystal and some other things. So it is worth noting that she has some fantastic awakened abilities as well. Overall, for guild battle, this is a 10 out of 10 monster. In my opinion, it's absolutely required for treasure hunters. Let me repeat that. If you are a guild battle treasure hunter, or you expect to be one, this is a required monster for your flexibility, because there will be better monsters than this, I'm sure. There will be monsters that counter this, I'm sure, but this is a really excellent monster overall, and it's something that you should have under your tool belt. There were some other monsters that could have replaced this at one point, but for now, this is the monster for sure. Fantastic. Let's look at the second one. This is Jotun, I don't know. It's one of those things, who knows how it's pronounced. Same thing, 2 effects, so let's read them off. The first one reduces status ailment resistance. Honestly, it can be super impactful, but it would also require that you use multiple monsters at the same time. You can't really throw this alone and have this effect do anything. Dual attack, it's fine. There are times when dual attack is important, but generally it's not the most important. Blessing is really valuable for things like Unison gauge reduction. Overcast for the entire team. Overcast is fantastic. It's one of those abilities that you don't really use that much, but really the main effect is that after it ends, it time extends everything, that all the buffs that you have, by 60, which is really, really nice in some circumstances, but just be aware that Overcast, generally speaking, is more of a PvE thing, can be used in PvP, can be used in guild battle, but it has a slightly strange place in guild battle, and same thing with PvP. It's more consistent in quests, but it is a really nice to have time extend. It's also worth mentioning you can only time extend once. So if you time extend and throw Overcast, Overcast doesn't do anything with the time extend. Only the first time extend extends it. So just something to be aware of when you are looking at monsters. Twilight, fantastic for PvP when you're trying to kill people, because it gives you penetration of everything. It gives you nullification penetration, reflection reduction penetration, and damage reduction penetration. And Rampart. It's fine. It's just another bubble, but it's fine. Not great. This one, it has the same effect as before. Something about fire element, we'll have to see. More research is required. Also penetrates pretty good. The damage isn't too bad. The number is what's getting me. 3 hits is not really enough to kill people most of the time. Scorching, Frozen, Rejection, Insanity. Alright, that is a little bit broken. It doesn't have Slumber, which the other one gave Slumber resistance. It doesn't have Slumber, which is one of the best ones, but it is worth pointing out that Scorching and Frozen both have really unique effects. Scorching, for example, reduces the enemy's defense by 50% when it's stacked to 1, and up to 95%, I believe, when it's stacked to 3. It's either 90 or 95%. I do not remember. Either way, it's basically reduces it by 100%. It's incredibly strong. And that applies to your damage. So any dual scaling moves that you're using, it reduces your defense stats, so you can't do as much damage when you're dual scaling moves like attack and defense. It would affect that damage. Same thing with Frozen, but for attack. So you can imagine. And this one, Scorching, also does damage to you whenever you use ability. Frozen paralyzes you, like paralysis. It has a chance to paralyze one of your abilities. Rejection and Insanity. Rejection reduces. It sets it so that you can't gain any cost, can't gain any uni, so fantastic for PvP. Insanity makes it so that you just turns your character into an auto CPU, so you can't move. Overall, there's been a few monsters that have given 3 effects, 3 of these, but I don't believe there are any monsters that have ever given 4 effects. And these are all 130 in value, which most people will not have a ton of resistance against this stuff. They'll have some, but this will land, and it can be game-changing. For example, if you're in guild battle and your opponents swap in to their backline so that they can buff their backline and one-shot your crystal, if you throw this monster and half of this sticks, if the Insanity or the Scorching or the Frozen, they're going to have to swap in their Cleric in order to cleanse everything before they can one-shot. That can buy you a lot of time. Some guilds may not have a Cleric. If they don't even have a Cleric, then they just lose. If they have, I suppose they could run something on a Treasure Hunter. There's one Treasure Hunter ability that can remove these effects. but it's really unusual to have a treasure hunter use that. So generally you have a cleric dedicated to something like that, but that can reduce the amount of damage that's incoming to the crystal by a massive amount. I mean, think about it. It takes 5 seconds to swap in, takes another second to recover, takes 1 or 2 seconds to use an ability, and then cleanse the other abilities. You know, like you have the top 3 and then the bottom 1 to cleanse. That's a lot of cleansing. That's a good 10 seconds, and then you have to swap out, you know? So this can be a pretty game-changing ability, especially for PvP. If you're running Colosseum and you like Colosseum, this is a fantastic monster to throw. You can't really go wrong with this monster. It also reduces status ailment, which is really valuable in things like Colosseum, because if you throw your monster and then the next person throws a Prohibit Uni monster, their Prohibit Uni is almost guaranteed to hit because you've just reduced their status ailment. Twilight, same thing, gives you excellent damage in PvP. You can kill people. Rampart, it's fine. You know, it's one of the worst bubbles, but it's a bubble, so you'll take it. Same thing, 60 frozen resistance. Frozen's not used as much, so the frozen resistance I'm not as big of a fan of. Water is fantastic right now, but we'll see in the future. Fire damage on monsters has been incredibly high as of late, but it may change in the future, so it is something worth considering. 70 uni resistance and confused resistance is fantastic. There are quite a few monsters that give this. Most of them, though, are sitting around 60. So a nice upgrade for there. Overall, I'd rank this monster. I do apologize. My nose has been running all morning, so I may sound a little bit sick. My judgment of this monster, I like the flexibility. Honestly, this monster's flexibility is pretty nice. Just any monster that gives 2 potential things. And the fact that it's pretty darn good in PvP, I would say it's probably not the best in guild battle. Arguably has a place. Pretty bad for PvE. Basically, the only thing that has a chance in PvE is this overcast. So we'll see. My guess is that this monster sits around a 6 out of 10. A lot of people end up not using these types of debuffs, which I think is a huge mistake. But the fact that it doesn't really have a lot of flexibility, it's not a required monster in any specific spot, kind of leaves me a little bit wanting something. I'd want more damage, like more hits, for example. I'd want more debuffs. All these debuffs are pretty generic and boring. So, yeah, I'm going to put them at a 6 out of 10. Really kind of meh. But if you roll, the other monster is so good that if you end up rolling this monster, definitely has an interesting place, can be used. So, that is fascinating. Let's look at the weapons now. So all of these will have the same proc for attack for the weapons. And then we'll look at the defense gear. So I can tell you right off the bat, a 6XL plus for doing nothing is insane. That is incredibly good. Plus crits, okay, gives yourself cost. That is actually really, really important. 10 cost has become the normal, and it is incredibly important for damage classes to have this type of proc, because when you are starting to use your super expensive abilities like Lance Flash, which costs 25, you can run out of cost incredibly fast. So running high cost gain procs is valuable. Also, guaranteed critting is also really great. Restoring 5% HP. I don't think a lot of people value this a whole lot, but I personally love this. I love it. I think it's really good. Whenever I see something like that, I'm happy. Also gains Unison at 5. So this one's it's a nice conjunction ability with the 10 cost. You could see a world where, at least I could see a world where you use this as a treasure hunter to race, because it has nice cost gain, has nice uni gain, and we'll get to the XXL in the bottom, but Yeah. Also stacks to 3, so incredibly easy to max stack, and you get a total of 7XL. That is incredibly good. That is top tier, and this is a really nice proc. This is a good proc. The additional thing that makes my jaw hit the floor is the XXL proc rate. That is incredibly rare, incredibly strong, and can be used in a lot of situations. This is a really nice, flexible gear, and you'll be able to use this for at least another year on all of your sets. This is, it'll work for guild battle, it'll work for PvE, it'll work for PvP. There are some things that it's like, okay, maybe that's not, like, of course you could add more ability power, but honestly, everything else is so good. The stacking to 3 is so good for new players. The XXL is so good just in general because you'd rather proc than not proc. So I just can't see a world where this isn't a 9 out of 10 right now. It's just so good. And there's 2 different sets. So there's a wind set and a water set. So whatever you need, you can get. Now let's talk about the defense gear. Holy smokes. This is the best defense gear in the entire game right now. Let's talk about it. So, reduces physical and magical damage taken by L+. What does L mean? So in general, if I remember correctly, S is 10, S plus is, any plus is 2.5. And then M would be 15. So S is 10, M is 15, L is 20, and L plus would put it to 22.5. This is a percent reduction in damage. It just reduces the amount of damage taken. That's what it does. Before, they had this as an S plus proc, and I tested it with some friends. It was awful because you can imagine 12.5% times 2 is only, what is that, like 25%? It's pretty bad. 25% of damage incoming is awful. Now, if you double proc this, that is 45% damage being reduced flat, just right off the bat. They're not doing 45% of the damage that they were going to do. That is incredibly good. That is just, if that was the only thing that was on this, that would be probably a 7 out of 10 proc for defense, which there's not a lot of 7 out of 10s. Most of them are sitting around like 3 out of 10. So that would be a pretty solid proc, but there's more. Increases your status ailment resistance. So this is, if somebody is attacking you and you proc this, it increases the chance that you don't get hit by something. So just be aware that that doesn't necessarily mean that this will increase your status ailment resistance permanently. I believe, because there have been other things, I believe this is a temporary thing for only this proc. So it doesn't apply to things like Unison attacks. But that is really valuable. There are a lot of cases where this would be good. For example, ninjas have an ability that blind in PvP, that if you're blind, then there's a chance you don't kill somebody, regardless of how much damage you could potentially do. So this can be a really powerful proc in cases where it's not even necessarily a damaging ability. Reduces physical and magical damage by 4XL plus. Holy smokes. The best gear in the entire game, just to put it in perspective, the best gear in the entire game before this was the Steema gear. And I can show you what that looked like. This guy. This is a 3XL. We are going from a 3XL to a 4XL plus. And this one also had just an XL proc and had XXL reduction or reflection. So let's compare that with this guy. Sorry, it takes me a while to get past all the stuff. There we go. So this one gives 4XL to 4XL plus to both of them. Holy smokes, that is incredible. This is the top defense gear in the game just from that. But let's continue. Damage reflection, XXL, stacks to 3, any element. It could be helm, hat, armor, or clothing. So it's basically impossible to not max stack this. Also incredibly good. Has the same type of thing as before. Same thing here. XL, stacks to 3, can be any wind stuff from helm, hat, armor, clothing. Incredibly easy to stack. Holy smokes, this defense gear, it's oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. This is 10 out of 10, top tier, unbelievably powerful gear. This is, oh my gosh. I basically feel like I need to spawn this just for this. But going back to what I said earlier, usually speaking, they release every single color of this type. So eventually you will get the color that you want. Right now that may not necessarily happen, but you will eventually get the color. So if you're currently stacking time, then this will apply for your time gear. If you're because they'll eventually come out with time stuff. They'll come out with star, light, dark, fire. So you don't necessarily need to spawn this. Let's talk about, is the spawn worth it and how much it'll cost. So you get 10 for free. You get one every single day. There are 14 days total. So we'll just call it like 20-ish plus a little bit if you're on every day. And then the first one's 15. How much is it to spawn, to exchange for the monster is 250. So you're looking at about 680 gems to guarantee a monster. And far, far less if you are trying to get one of these weapons or one of the armors. Overall, this is a pretty... So it's a difficult spawn to judge. I think it's a fantastic spawn, but I think that it depends on the person. For example, this first monster here... Oh, hang on. This first monster is really great for PvP, for guild battles, for stuff like that. So I think overall, it's worth spawning for a lot of people. And just beyond that, you could use it for a lot of stuff. This monster, not as good, maybe not worth spawning. Now, all of the attack gear and the defense gear, keep in mind that this will eventually come out in every single color. So if you are currently stacking a specific color, this is not a requirement now, but when your color arrives, be aware it'll be about this cost. So you'll need to prepare about 700 gems or more potentially, depending on how much you want to spawn, in order to get some of this defense gear. Now, they may come out with better defense gear. Eventually, it always happens where there's scaling, you know? So eventually better defense gear will come out. We'll see what happens then. But as of right now, this is fantastic gear. And it will be for years. You can definitely use this for a long time. Now, let's talk about the type of spawn. This is just a random spawn. So when you spawn it, you're not guaranteed to get anything. And this type of spawn is really disheartening for a lot of people. I have personally spent over 600 gems on this type of spawn and gotten nothing. So I want you to be aware that when you spawn this, you are not guaranteed anything. It is not like a step up where every chance you get a chance for the monster, you get a chance for the thing, for the weapons, and then eventually you guaranteed get a weapon and you guaranteed get a defense gear. And then you guaranteed get the monster. There is no such thing with this type of spawn. So I want you to be aware, it is full on gambling, YOLO, 360 no scoping when you are going in on this type of spawn. Let's talk about the other two spawns. There was a special that came out, garbage, don't spawn, 42 cost, way too expensive. It was the same thing here, same thing, don't spawn, 43 cost, not worth, especially when comparing to the new stuff. So that was easy. And that's pretty much it. I'll probably make a video on the Purgatory Blaze at some point, but yeah, that's for another time. Alrighty, catch you guys later.